Greetings, here is your daily walk through the scriptures for February the 29th. Happy leap year. Remember, you can only watch this video once every 4 years, so make it good. Today's readings come in Leviticus chapter 24, Leviticus 25, 1 through 46, Mark chapter 10, 13 through 31, Psalm 44, 9 through 26, and Proverbs 10, 20 through 21. Have you ever heard one of those old school gospel songs that starts talking about the year of Jubilee and all that kind of stuff? And you're like, what the heck is Jubilee? I don't even, well, here's your answer. Leviticus 24 and 25 gives us the year of Jubilee, and it's good, important stuff. But before we go to that, let's go to the harshness that is Leviticus chapter 24, and let's look at this blasphemer put to death. I mean, that's... Whew, I mean, could you imagine if we did that today? There wouldn't be much TV these days because they seem to love to use that word on TV. Is that really what it means, though? Is that really what it means when it says, do not take the Lord's name in vain? Is this really what it means? Well, that's a good question. Yes and no. Yes, because the name Yahweh that we use today was actually considered sacred by the Jews. In fact, the way that they would spell out Yahweh was YHWH with no vowels, because they didn't want the word to be pronounceable. They considered the word so sacred that it was impronounceable. And so, they took the name, the literal name of God, very seriously. But when God gives the command to not take his name in vain, there's far more to it than that. God's also talking about our actions, how we choose to behave, how we choose to represent God. Remember, everything that we do, if we are a follower of Christ, reflects Jesus. So if someone knows that you're a Christian and you're going around and you're, picking fights, you're doing illegal things, you're doing all sorts of different stuff, and you're like, then people are going to look at you and go, what? You're a Christian? Well, then you're no different from me. Why do I need Jesus? There's no difference. So we got to take those things very, very seriously. And they did, obviously, back then, because they put this young man to death. And God made it very clear that this was to happen. Again, this was some of the set aside stuff. This was someone who didn't take God seriously, much like Aaron's sons. And as a result of it, paid the ultimate price. So then God suddenly very much shifts gears and gives us rules for rest in the Sabbath year, but also this year of Jubilee. And the year of Jubilee, every 50 years, was this great, huge, massive celebration. And it was like, remember, the number 7 is very important in the Bible. 7 happens a lot. 7 is the sign of perfection. Okay, there were 7 days in the week, and so the 7th day of the seventh week is also the Sabbath. So it's the day of rest. Okay, but every 7 years of Sabbaths. Okay, so let's see this. Okay, here we go. So every 7 years is a year of Sabbath for the land, and that land rest is that they are not supposed to plant crops during that 7th year, and they're just supposed to eat whatever grows. Now, we know this today as a very smart farming technique because you actually, prior to recent technology advances, you needed the land to rest, and so you actually had people that would rotate crops to help the land stay healthy, or they would give a field an off year. Well, that's exactly what God is talking about here. He's talking about this Sabbath year is a year of rest for the land. But after 7 of those, so you're talking 7 times 7, so this would be 49. So on that 50th year, okay, you get the year of Jubilee. Now, this was an important year for several reasons. First of all, if your family happened to lose your land at any time in those 50 years, it automatically went back to you in the year of Jubilee. If you lost it for whatever reason, it is supposed to be returned to you. It is a time of restoration. It is a time of renewal. It's a time of refresh. So when people talk about the year of Jubilee, they're talking about redemption of things and the return of things. And when Christians talk about the year of Jubilee, they're talking about the redemption of humanity when Christ returns. So when you hear someone say that, what they're talking about is the day of Jubilee when Jesus returns and Jesus comes back. But it's all centered around Leviticus chapter 25. Okay, there you go. There's your thought for the day. We will talk more tomorrow, March 1st.